This video is brought to you by the lovely sponsors below. Thank you so much for your support. Welcome, fellow masters. My name is Musaki from Chaldea Gurus. Today, we're going to be looking at the limited 4-star archer, Asagami Fujino. She's only available for the Garden of Sinners rerun event, and after that, she's gone for good. We're going to talk about her origins, stats, and skills first, then wrap up with noble phantasms, recommendations, and final thoughts. Timestamps will be in the description. So, without further ado, let's jump into it and take a look at Fujino with our Discerning Eye. Fujino comes from the third card in the Kyokai movie, Remaining Sense of Pain, and appears as the antagonist. Her powers are the Mystic Eyes of Distortion, which create a set of red and green swirls that twist the target according to those swirls. The attacks displayed in the game all revolve around this special skill of hers. Spoiler alert, her MP is also referenced at the ending of the fight between her and Shiki, which she destroys the bridge they're fighting on by expanding her range with a minor clairvoyance that she had developed. So, with the initial info out of the way, how does she stack up in FGO? As mentioned previously, she appears as a 4-star archer with the highest attack stat for all 4-star archers, but the third lowest HP in the same category. She has a reverse S growth curve, meaning that you'll need to max her out at level 80 to get the most powerful spike in stats. This won't matter for most people, but it's a good thing to know. Her star absorption is not great, being below the average for archers in general. Her star generation is also not the best, but that's not really a problem on our server with only one quick card. Speaking of her cards, she sports a 2 Arch, 2 Buster, and 1 quick card deck, with a Buster Noble Phantasm. Now onto her skills. Skill number 1, Mystic Eyes of Distortion, EX. Increases own Buster performance for 3 turns, ignore defense for 3 turns. Increases own Noble Phantasm generation rate for 3 turns. Skill number 2, Clairvoyance Darkness C. Ignore evasions for 3 turns, gain critical stars. Skill number 3, Residual Pain A. Reduces own max HP by 2000 for 3 turns as a demerit. Reduces own damage taken for 3 turns, and grants self-gut status for 1 time or 3 turns. Revives with 1 HP. Her first skill is the offensive option here, a 3-turn Buster Up, Defense Ignore, and Noble Phantasm Generation buff, all packed into one. It's a good skill to use before you use her Noble Phantasm, allowing it to take advantage of the first 2 effects, while the third one will be most useful to get your Noble Phantasm faster. Her second skill allows her to ignore evasion for 3 turns. It offers 5 to 15 critical stars. It's a combination of sure hit and instincts, whereas the usual clairvoyance buff is just star generation. This is really important, since ignoring evasion for 3 turns is quite a long time. Her third skill is a gut skill with a deceptive demerit. The way it works is that it reduces your max HP by 2000, then sets your current HP to either that new max or keeps it at its current value. When the effect ends, your max HP goes back up by 2000, and so does your current HP. This skill offers a substantial damage cut from 1000 to 2000 damage. The only real drawback is the guts brings you back at 1 HP, but that's most guts anyway. When it comes to the skill order, I would recommend prioritizing her first skill, seeing as it offers the most beneficial effects. Her third skill will come next, seeing as it directly affects her survivability. If you want, you can reverse those 2, if you want to keep her alive rather than deal damage, and her second skill should be left for last. The major part of her skill is the sure hit. The ability to ignore evasion for 3 turns is nothing to scoff at, and a major power spike once activated. With the only thing changing with the skill level is the crit stars you get, and the cooldown. You don't need to level it as the ignore evasion is strong enough as it is at level 1. Let's move on to her passives. Magic Resistance D increases own debuff resistance by 12.5%. Independent Action A+, increases own critical damage by 11%. And Territory Creation B increases own arch performance by 8%. The first 2 are standard to the Archer class, but the last one is normally reserved for casters. With this, her arch cards passively hit harder and generate more Noble Phantasm charge. Seeing that her arch cards hit 3 times, and there's also that Noble Phantasm generation buff from her first skill, this will speed up the rate that you get your Noble Phantasm by quite a bit. Speaking of her Noble Phantasm, let's talk about that next. Mystic Eyes of Distortion, Buster card variant. Deals damage to one enemy. Inflicts buff block status to them for 1 time or 3 turns. Overcharge. Reduces their attacks for 3 turns by 10 to 30%. This very flashy Noble Phantasm that has Bridge Destruction EX is a single target buster attack that inflicts a buff block status to the enemy for 1 time or 3 turns. It also reduces their attack for 3 turns, 10 to 30% depending on overcharge level. This works on slaying bosses, and on top of that, slows down their progression by blocking one of their buffs and reducing their attack. However, it is noted that the damage is not the best at Noble Phantasm 1. Please keep this in mind as the Noble Phantasm hits 3 times. For comparison's sake, Bedivere with a 2-hit Buster Noble Phantasm hits harder. If you're blessed with 2 copies, however, you'll see the biggest jump in damage from 600% to 800%. This isn't just a Fujino problem, but it affects a lot of servers. For more info on this, please look out for a more detailed video on Noble Phantasm levels in the future. Overall, if there's a Saber or Berserker boss that needs handling, Fujino can bend them into ungodly shapes of Fratini. Finally, there's her Bond craft essence, Summer's Rain. It gives the entire party a 10% arch and Buster performance buff. It's alright, but I wouldn't recommend using it. Craft essences with party effects would be good for supportive units. Damage dealers would benefit much more from more quote-unquote selfish buffs, the kind most craft essences offer. Giving those up for the chance to buff the supports that are only there to buff you is kinda counterintuitive. So while the art looks nice, I wouldn't use it myself. So we broke it down what she can do, but how can we best make use of her abilities? Let's talk about some team setups and craft essence recommendations. Having a single target Noble Phantasm pretty much makes her a boss killer, and as mentioned, a boss staller with the effects on her Noble Phantasm. As such, she has good synergies with the usual casters such as Merlin or Hans. Heals are always appreciated for her, and anyone with the capacity to charge her Noble Phantasm. This way, she has the potential to use it twice in the same 3-turn period of her first skill, and that is highly appreciated. If not, then additional defense buffs can help her with her survivability. So Mashu could also be a good pick here. Finally, the craft essence to pick. Whatever we mentioned that wasn't taken into account with an ally would go here. In the list of priorities, we would go regeneration or other forms of healing, Noble Phantasm charge, defensive buffs, invul or just defense up effects, and offensive buffs. The reason why offensive buffs are that low in the tier list for a boss killer is due to her status as more of a boss staller. The attack down and guts help Fujino play the long game rather than rush an enemy down. I'd also like to add that she already has the ability to ignore defense. This in combination with her first skill makes up for the lack of damage since she will generally always do good damage. This allows the rest of the supporting cast to have more focus on utility, and some examples of C's that fit the mold would be Conquering the Great Sea of Stars, Pharaoh Chocolat, Conversation on the Hot Sands, Hero Ellie's Adventure, Aerial Drive, Gâteau au Chocolat, or chocolate cake in French. You guys don't know how many times I had to say this in recording. Volumen Hydrogyrum, and Iron Will Training. While there are craft essences like Bath of the Lunar Goddess that grant health regeneration, I would personally leave that role to a servant rather than a craft essence, unless you really need both the regen effect and the up to 2000 extra HP it offers. At the end of the day, Asagami Fujino is a good archer. The sad thing is, the archer class has no shortage of good archers at varying rarities. However, to date, as mentioned, this is the only banner that she has. Your one time to get her. So, if you really love the character of Asagami Fujino, are lacking archer servants, or a collector that must have every servant, then I would say she's worth rolling for. Otherwise, you should definitely save your courts. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future and ring that bell so you'll be notified when we upload next. You know, all the typical YouTube stuff. In either case, I am Musaki from Chaldea Gurus, and we're logging out. See ya!